the 14th of June, and it is 1 o'clock. Time for Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, your best hour of the week. Why is it your best hour? Because we answer questions and have discussions and talk about information that you need to know to have a better world. Today we have a special guest with us. Marwan is unfortunately in Seattle, but we have Matthew Barrett, who is the Solar King of Kitsap County, and we will be talking about letting the sun shine in. Bring Matthew on now. Hello, sir. You're on mute. We can't hear you. And still can't hear you. Hold on a second. Let me see if there's something on my end. Doesn't appear to be. Is your volume up? Okay. And your volume is all the way up over here, so I don't know why I'm not hearing you. I'm not getting any volume coming through from your side at all. You want to try logging back in? Okay. While Matthew's logging back in and seeing if we can solve the technical issues, we'll talk a little bit about what our discussion is going to be today. We're in the digital age, as we're being told right now. Let me bring Matthew back on. Hold on a second. Sir, say something. Still can't hear you. Let me turn that down all the way back up. I've got no audio coming through at all. You check your settings. There should be a settings button on the login or at the bottom of the screen. If there is, check your settings and see if you're what it's set for your audio. I can see you're talking. Can't hear a word. Anyway, as we are entering the digital age here, or actually are solidly in the digital age, wouldn't it be nice if the power that we rely on was going to be available to us when we needed it? And Matthew is speaking. Unfortunately, we can't hear him. So unless there's a lip reader in the audience, we're just going to let him work on that for a minute and see if he comes to a place where he gets better signal or whatever the issue seems to be. And I don't see anything on my end that's stopping him from talking. So, okay, well, we'll just go on with this and hopefully it'll settle itself out. Our power grid hasn't really been significantly upgraded since the 1960s. There have been many innovations that have not been adopted. If you want to call me out on this, send me a message at mark@roseco.org, and I'll be happy to give you source material for any and all of that. We are having more and greater crises from lack of maintenance from the large utility companies. And we are seeing more and more failures every year. This is going to be endemic into our future. And considering we depend so much on power and more so all of the time, it would be nice if we had some security in that. And since the for-profit utilities don't seem to have any real great interest in improving that infrastructure, we need to talk about other alternatives and how we get those implemented. And as Matthew is traveling on the bus today, we are seeming to not be able to talk to him, but the discussion that Matthew and I have ongoing, as Matthew is the head of the Power for All project within the Kitsap Resiliency Project and has taken ownership of that, We're pushing for microgrids to start being installed. And if we can't get PSE to do that, we need to find other alternatives to make that happen, because microgrids give us a greater control locally than we would have on the major grid, and it will give us the benefit of possibly being able to keep our power on even if the grid goes down via storage. And it also allows us to start talking about seriously generating our own power. As I can see, Mike Matthew's hat says Lumio on it, and that's one of the companies that he works with and uses. And let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. I am got full signal on this side, and it looks like Matthew is freezing periodically, and the volume on him is all the way up on our side. So I don't know why he's not able to communicate through, but we'll just keep his pretty face up here, and I will point out why you want to talk to him. So Matthew he goes by the Solar King of Kitsap. Great nom de plume, but he works with several companies, and he's in conversations with lots of people that are dealing with upgrading the grid and looking at infrastructure. So we're going to switch over here out of this country for a moment, and we're going to go to Japan and then to Germany. In Japan in 2011, they had a massive earthquake, much along the lines of what is predicted here with the Cascadia Rising event. When that earthquake happened, we all know about Fukushima, the nuclear power plant that went down, and the crisis that was around that. There's far more crisis we can talk about, but we're going to keep this short. The main issue from that, of course, is the baseline power in Japan was greatly affected by this. Not to mention the cleanup that is ongoing, the almost total loss of the nuclear power plant. And because of this, Germany, jumping a little bit north and west, looked at this and said, yeah, we're going to kind of get out of nuclear. And they had decided to start shutting down their nuclear plants, replacing it with various forms of renewable energy. And actually, Matthew, if you could speak every now and again just to see if the sound is resolving itself, and you can hear me. Okay. So if I'm wrong in anything, shake your head no. So Germany voted to go off of nuclear in 2011, and they have been working diligently toward that end since then. And you think about that, it's only been 12 years, going on 13 years since they made that decision, and they've closed all but 6 power plants. Now, 2 of those power plants share borders with other countries and are part of their baseline power, so they cannot close those easily. But they will be closing the other 4 this year or next, and they are replacing it with tremendous forethought and foresight, and by building microgrids throughout the country and putting them in communities. They started out by paying farmers for power generated. So farms had wind turbines on them, and they were being paid for the power. So it's another crop that didn't take up any of the space that their other crops did. So it was a win-win. They started putting solar on all the roofs. They started working with their utilities to change their model to charge for infrastructure support as opposed to charging for power delivery, which is how we pay for our power in this country. We charge for the power that's delivered to the house, as opposed to paying for providing infrastructure and being paid for the infrastructure we provide, which would therefore support the utilities as well. So their move was toward that direction, and they have been wildly successful. Microgrids are now incredibly smart, and they share power within the house, within the community. They store power with lithium-ion batteries. And when I talk to our local utility, they say, well, renewable energy and storage are far too immature for us to use. part of the reason they say that is profit and investment, but part of the reason, the part of the more realistic reason they say that is because they're looking at grid delivery from a centralized location. And it becomes exponentially more complex to create a grid and deliver power from massive solar fields.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay,
You can?
I can.
Oh my gosh.
There we
Okay.
go.
I have no.
The digital age is alive.
To Aries human to really mess things up, get a computer.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So yes, and I'm loving all the foundation that you're laying on this. There's been so many things that have just. There's been so many canaries in the coal mine. There's been so many for so much foreshadowing of the failure of the power grid. And thank you for giving the timeline on just a few of those things. That was great.
Yeah, and I hadn't even gotten to 2004 yet. I was going to go back a little bit further and talk about the 2004 power outage in the Northeast that started with one tree falling across a power line in Ohio and a massive failure of similarity of systems or disparity of systems from there all the way up into Canada. And the fact that no one knew what the alarm from one system meant in another system. And we had a cascading failure that took over 10 million people's power away for up to
Yep.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and it was almost a decade before they finally got rules on the books about trimming tree limbs around power lines to make that safe and consistent for everybody.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So when you think about that, it took almost a decade for just tree trimming to happen, and Germany has
Mhm.
basically converted their entire power system in less than 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do when you have a will to do it
Yeah.
and make the decision. In this country, the will is going to have to come from the people, which is us, which is, I'm going to let Matthew talk about that and the Power for All petition in a moment. But to finish up the storyline here, Germany is now running almost 90% of their country off renewables now, today.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the reason that they are able to do that when our utilities say that they cannot is because they're powering the houses locally and not depending on it. The grid is the major main grid is part of the system, but it is not the entire system. In the United
Right.
States, we look at the grid as the entire system, and we have to have these massive generating spots that we can ship out to the entire grid. And the primary reason for that is for brokers to be able to sell the power at different prices at different places. Um, because it in no way makes any kind of efficiency sense or
Hmm.
logistical sense. The logistical sense is to generate power locally, to store power locally, and to create the power where you need it, as opposed
Absolutely.
to delivering it from Texas and or Ohio or somewhere else. Now, in Washington State, we do generate a lot of our own power through hydro, which has its own significant environmental issues, but those are being addressed
Hmm.
as we go along. A matter of fact, a dam just recently was closed and is
Yes.
going to be torn down. But
Well, and on the list of when I don't know how people feel about the governor, love him or hate him, but the governor of Washington State has his big push that he wants all the utilities to be going to renewable energy, and a lot of people didn't even notice on his list of renewable energy, hydro isn't listed. It is no longer considered renewable sustainable energy because of those environmental impacts.
well, also the issue. Let's talk about the Colorado River for a moment. While that's not Washington State,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the Colorado River hasn't reached the Mexican border in 2 or 3 decades because
Yep.
all of the water is being pumped off for golf
Hmm.
courses and housing communities in the desert.
Right.
And
Right.
you know they want to keep their lawn screen in the desert.
Yeah.
So there's a whole environmental issue there. There's a whole environmental issue where the government had to step in because as climate change continues to grow and heat waves continue to happen, water's evaporating, and
Yeah.
we aren't thinking about we are 60 years behind the times in our thinking about utilities whether it's water or power or anything else. And we haven't even started the process of planning toward the future. That's why we're talking about it today, because as Matthew's on his cell phone, I'm on my computer, and we rely on power to power that. Anybody who has a cell phone, what would happen if you couldn't charge it? How would you
Oh
feel?
yeah.
Think about that.
Well, when I
As their,
ride the
their stomach,
bus,
as their stomach clenching all over the county.
I bring this Blue Eddy with me. This is a portable solar generator. It can be charged off of solar panels or off of the grid at my house, and then I bring it with me on the bus. And it powers my the tablet that I'm on. My phone right now is my hotspot. I right now I'm using wired headphones because I don't want yet another point of failure for a system where the sound already went out. But I have wireless headphones that will charge, so I can be charging 3 devices at the same time, all while riding the bus.
Yeah, and so he's got his own reliable power with him. And while I'm depending on ungrounded outlets in the house, which has one grounded outlet in the entire place. So, and how many people in Kitsap County have that same issue? How many people in
Right.
Kitsap County have electric heat and are reliant on electric heat?
Too many.
So, as we
Yeah.
go into the winter time and a power failure happens and your heat goes out, how will that impact you?
Yeah. there's there's going to be a lot of, well, we're seeing this all over the world. One of the first things that Russia did when they hit Ukraine is they blacked it out. They wanted the power grid for when they moved in, but you remove the production of that power and the grid is useless. So that was one of the very first strategic moves they made, was to wipe out the power at the source. That's basic strategy.
So, in the early seasons of NCIS, and I'm assuming some of the viewers watch that little TV series, it's now on its 20th season. They talked about a plan to hit one of three power grid sites that will take down the power throughout the Northeast. Later on in a later episode, they said the similar type of thing could affect the entire country's grid. Now,
Yes.
because there are central points where hubs shift power. Now we have a more radical political group shooting at transformers on power sites to bring the
Yep.
power down. Now, so far, we've been lucky that that is a big risk for an entire area. And as we just pointed out, we are dependent on power for communication. We're dependent on power for heat, frequently for cooking. For most of our lives, we are dependent on power. If that power,
Absolutely.
if that power hub gets taken down and a hospital goes down, what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. How fast is that? How long is that community going to last without a hospital? How long is the hospital going to last without generators? How long are the patients going to last without power? These are
When was
things.
the last time the generators got tested?
Right.
I'm
Right.
I'm I'm a cynic. So my question
Yeah.
is: are they actually testing the generators? Is there emergency management people in the hospital actually going through there? You see in news articles every day that a critical backup system didn't work
And
because people are checking.
when and yeah, the biggest point of failure for systems is the ones that are considered the most secure, the ones that are set and forget. Forgetting is that's the point of failure. And there are lots of scary things about our grid. I don't normally get into the there's plenty of scary stuff without even getting into war. Well, let's talk about war for a moment, because yeah, the we have uh, domestic terrorists who have been shooting transformers as a proof of concept that high-powered rifles can destroy transformers. They've done that deliberately. We have domestic terrorists who have wiped out the power stations remotely by the ideology of domestic terrorists and of jihadis.
Make everybody
It's
uncomfortable.
well, it's very their ideology is very similar. Jihadis have stated they love the idea of knocking out the American power grid because then they spiritually would not be responsible for the deaths that happened. It would happen because of American hubris living so far above their station with all the not living close enough to reality as they would think of it so that they could adapt to life off the grid. And so if they wipe out the power, they don't have to kill any Americans. American hubris will do it all by itself. And there have been test runs um, of EMPs. A single EMP at the right altitude could wipe out the entire US power grid from coast to coast. The
And
people responsible for hardening the grid against that have said, oh no, that's not our job, that's the military. Okay, well, will you give the military access to the power stations? Oh no, those are our power stations. And so you have NERC and FERC, and they
more,
gridlock and they
more,
block the, yeah,
more importantly than that, this right here.
sorry,
2025, NASA says that
yeah,
there's going to be a solar flare, the equivalent of 1989, which knocked out, or greater than 89, which knocked out several parts of the communication system because solar flares put out electromagnetic pulses or EMPs.
right,
Now, this phone could have a Faraday cage built into the case, and
yes, it could.
which would prevent that. Generators and power stations could have Faraday cages built into them. It's not that expensive. Ask the question whether they are built into them. Does your
Well, of
computer
course,
does your computer have a Faraday cage built into it?
yeah. And the there are some great books about this. They're blanking on me at the moment. The what is it? He's since passed away, but the head of um, the task force for national and homeland security was a great energy wonk, and he wrote a couple of books about this. Um, and the sickest, saddest part of this is that the least expensive forms of grid hardening will actually protect against EMP, they'll protect against nuclear, they'll protect against natural solar flares. This is one of the few situations where the least expensive solutions are actually the best, and
So
yet we won't do it at all.
okay, so let me throw this out at you. The
Yeah, yeah,
no, let's say we won't do it at all. The power companies won't make that investment in it to protect themselves and protect the grid infrastructure. Not to mention, just a side note here, when I lived in Port Orchard, I looked past Waterman Pier and my power pole went straight down into the Sound. So let's talk about salt water and electricity. That's not a good combination. But
peanut butter and jelly.
yeah, so it's like it's not been upgraded, it's not managed
Yep.
well. Um, and we can go on. It's again, email me at mark@reseco.org, and I'll happily give you source material. Go on reseco.org's website, and you will see under Power for All a whole bunch of articles about the reasoning behind this. But
Yeah, yeah.
going to the point that Matthew are here really to talk about is if we start creating our own microgrids, we can build the protections into them in our communities.
Absolutely. And so this is really what can be done at the grassroots level. If we do not need to wait for them. This is something that we can build into our own microgrids. We can harden the microgrids against this. Uh, we can well, and one of the simplest things, just having microgrids at all will protect the grid against it all going down at once because of the ablative nature of an EMP and the way it runs. So
Right.
that the more opportunities we give that to fail, the more areas we can protect. And so just having microgrids, it means that that EFP now has to roll dice on every grid community it comes across, and all it needs to do is roll snake eyes blocked out of that area, so that area sacrificed itself for all the rest of the grid beyond that. We can do
Yeah.
that. We can do that ourselves.
So also the point of a microgrid is you can generate power locally. We can be generating power on every roof. We can be putting wind turbines in. We can find micro hydro, which will not create a lot of the environmental issues of the large dams. We can
Yes, yes.
we can do all kinds of things to generate power on a very grassroots local level.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
it's really hard for terrorists, eco terrorists or domestic terrorists, to go shoot at every microgrid.
Well, and getting back to Ukraine, one of the ways that Ukraine has been fighting back, a huge source of fighting back against Russia, is solar panels. They're putting solar panels. You find me on Facebook. There's an article about this under Solar King of Kitsap on Facebook, and they're putting solar panels on hospitals. They're putting them on residences, and they are decentralizing their grid, so there is no single central place that they can just say, all right, bomb that area and the whole grid will go dark. That place, it no longer exists on the Ukrainian grid.
And we talk about, every time I have this conversation on Facebook, I get people saying, "Well, nuclear is the only way we got to go." Well, let's remind you that Germany did the calculus, and Germany is known for being able to do math really, really, really well. I mean, they're a country of engineers, and when they came up with the answer of, "Yeah, we really don't want to back nuclear,"
Right,
um,
right,
and you can talk about clean energy, and I can talk to you about fuel rods and pools that have been there forever and ever and ever because we can't do anything with them. You can talk about Yucca Mountain, and I can say it's not open yet. We can go back and
right.
forth forever on this, but there's one dead center piece of this. It's built by the lowest bidder.
Well, not only that, in my problem with nuclear, I don't have any problem with nuclear on an industrial scale. What you do, my issue is that nuclear will always be centralized power, and part of the goal here is to decentralize it so that there is no single
Point
point that can
of
be
failure.
attacked, a single point of failure, single point of attack. From a tactical standpoint, I'm I am all about empowering, like you are, like we are with resilient ecosystems. We are empowering the homeowners. We're empowering the individual citizens, and there is no residential. There will never be a residential nuclear option.
What? No Mr. Fusion on my DeLorean?
The Mr. Fusion on the DeLorean was a wonderful thing for a movie, but let's get serious.
Yeah.
There have been people who have tried to create home nuclear reactors. It did not go well for them.
Not to
I
mention you
think,
still have the waste issue.
right, right. And so, no, there is not going to be, and that is my primary objection to nuclear, is that nuclear by its very nature will never be decentralized. There's no such thing.
So there
And
is a
I would love to be wrong about that. Send me an email if you challenge that idea at solarkingofkitsap at gmail.com. I would love to talk to someone about it. I would love to be wrong, but yeah, uh,
yeah,
when it comes to residential power production, solar at this time is the only game in town.
yeah. So I watched this guy named Tom Scott, British guy, who does all these adventure things, and he finds these cool things and goes and does it on YouTube. And yesterday, and I laughed when you were talking about that because I was picturing him. He found these couple guys in Italy that built this simulator, undersea submarine simulator, in the back of their grist mill on their property in rural Italy. And it was like, he thought it was going to be like a cool little simulation thing where you're sitting in a chair and doing this thing, but it was actually they built a submarine simulator that you got into, and you sat in the car and you turned things and things moved and changed.
Wow.
but in the middle of this simulation, and it goes to this little thing in a pond. So you're like going through the pond, looking at different things and things as you move the submarine, and they're linked up. But in the middle of it, an alarm went off that he had to change the nuclear fuel rod in the submarine. So he had to pull this green glowing thing out of one thing, run over, pull it out of another thing, stick the new one in, and the other one, and put it back in the thing. And I'm thinking, can you imagine doing that in your home?
Yeah. Well, and people say, well, what about wind? Wind requires constant maintenance. It's great for hobbyists. That's a great example. Yeah. Um, people want to build this in their home. They're hobbyists, more power to them. But for the average consumer, wind is not an option. Biofuels is not an option. And nuclear will never be an option for the average.
On the other hand, if there are local utilities that are being paid to support the infrastructure, they
Right.
are able to set up for wind and do wind
Right.
production as part of it. And we could
Yep.
do that locally, and even tidal turbines, which are proving themselves out
Yes.
in Scotland right now. Which, let's
Yeah.
just say, the Puget Sound has a lot of tidal activity. We could, in
Agreed.
fact, be able to generate a lot of power, but the problem is cost benefit analysis when you're looking at massive grid projects.
Right, right. So yeah, those are going to be utility scale projects,
Small
and
utility scale projects, local, that
yeah,
can be localized.
yep, yeah, they can be localized. So yes, you can do that at a local scale, definitely. But yeah, it's going to be. We're going to need lots of different things. I'm not saying that solar all by its own, especially solar without storage, is near useless. So it's got to be a solar plus storage option. But yeah, these other things, well, let's take a look at the cost benefits, see what we can do to throw that into the mix.
Yeah. Plus,
But
there's a lot of things going on in storage that are really hopeful. I mean, lithium ion, obviously, it's working. It's expensive. It seems to be doing pretty well. It's I'm not bulletproof, but it's actually not bad. But we've got
yeah,
graphene on the horizon. We have salt water. We have a rust based battery. I was watching a special on.
yes.
Says as rust happens, the charges creates electricity.
I one of these days I'm going to make a list of all the batteries, and I'm going to, because I call it the horse race, and I'm going to just go live and give people the update from the horse race. But there are so many different battery models in that system. And, you know, uh, the technology there clearly needs to develop. There's also utility scale storage that could buy us time to develop that technology. One of my favorites is gravity batteries in
Mhm.
abandoned coal mines. This would be a new use for these abandoned coal mines. They've got all the coal out of the seam, or it's no longer safe to mine. Those empty spaces could now be used to store ballast, and the moving of that can turn generators so that putting stuff into the mine and taking it out can store and release energy. And this is another one that I've got on the Facebook group Tech Horizon. There's a link to uh, a working model of this that it's actually been demonstrated. Well, not model scale like on a table, but no, they've actually done this in a coal mine, proof of concept, gravity batteries. And so we can have production at the home scales as the technology is mature enough for that, and that the storage can happen at different levels with the huge
Great,
amounts
greater
of
security through a
yes,
diversified way
yes,
of doing it.
we've
And then
got to diversify.
I'm assuming that if it can be done in coal mines, it can be done in gold mines.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So any of
which brings up an interesting thing. A few years ago, a abandoned gold mine in Colorado, I believe,
mhm.
had a retaining pool which has all the nasty chemicals and all that the stuff in it, collapsed because it was improperly banked and went down the Colorado River, poisoning water
Oh
all the
my
way down
gosh.
into the Navajo
Yep,
agriculture
yep.
area. And the EPA was bringing in water for the Navajos to drink, which actually turned out to be tainted as well,
Right.
and to use, and so it was horrible. But if you suddenly had a revenue stream for a gold mine, an abandoned gold mine, you could afford to do all the cleanup
Exactly.
and bring it up to less of an environmental hazard. So I'm just
Copper
thinking,
mines. Yes, there's environmental hazards from copper mines. Cupric, what is it? Cupric acid created by, there's actually, what is it called? There's a type of bacteria within the mines that produce acid as a byproduct, and it collects in gallons and rinses out of the mines, and it's terrible, terrible stuff for the environment. But you're right, there's no incentive to fix it when the mine itself is dead. Now, if that was still an active mine, they would have all these precautions to make sure that that stuff was environmentally safe. So yes, we can reinvigorate these empty spaces, and there's value there with the gravity batteries or with other projects. And
which
so that,
answers how we deal with the environmental impact of those mines to
yes,
start
yep, absolutely.
with. Okay. The first question everybody asks is, where's the money going to come from? Well, there you are.
Right, right. The money, the money is there in electricity. We need more of it. We're not going to get more unless we get creative. So yeah, let's follow the money. Let's
So
follow the
we so we need to get more creative.
money. Mhm.
And so in order for doing that, we need people to step up and start applying pressure, which means people need to come together and have this discussion. And I would argue that this discussion goes beyond political ideology. I think this discussion goes into everybody has a cell phone and I want it to be able to turn on. During the
Yep.
winter, I want heat in my house. This is a human
Yes.
level discussion. To that end, why
Yes.
don't you talk a little bit about the petition and the Power for All project?
Absolutely. So the petition, we are petitioning the local utilities for the right to create our own microgrids. All we're asking for is permission. And so that's where it starts. The petition is available online.
Through. Oh, and Matthew's back. Hold on.
Where did I
There we go.
stop? There.
Are available through poof.
Oh, dear. Um, so the petition for this, we're petitioning the utilities for the right to create our own microgrids. This will harden the grid, will make it safer. It will help on so many different levels. And all we need from them is permission to do this. So we're gathering. We want to gather 10,000 signatures so that
Actually
we can.
26,000.
Oh, is that what we were going
Yeah,
for? Okay.
we're going for 26,000, and we've got
Oh,
close to
okay.
two.
Okay. Excellent. So yeah, we're gathering the signatures for this, and we just want the ability to democratize this so that it's distributed, so that it's safer for everybody. This will create its own uh, whole new level of economics because within a microgrid you might have one house that has solar, one house that has storage, and one house that doesn't have either of those. It might be in the shade or something like that. And so, it allows your neighbors could be your suppliers of electricity within that microgrid, which will then drive down the cost for everybody else. So
And
these are
increase the
all,
security.
yes, yeah, and it makes things better for everybody. So we're asking people uh, to contact us. Let's gather the signatures. Let's get your neighbors together and let's have a watch party. We can watch Power Trip, great documentary on PBS about the effects of the fight against solar and the fight against the net metering policies from the utilities, and we can learn how to fight them, learn what will gain their attention, what will gain their compliance. There's some losses and some wins that we documented in that documentary. So this is what we're doing. grassroots, taking the power back, and using it to help everybody.
Excellent and absolutely. I'm just typing in information to message at.
Yeah,
Okay, there we go. Message us at message us at the Kids Up Resiliency Project on Facebook, and I will get that to Matthew. You could email me at mark@resecco.org through email, Matthew at solarkingofkitsap@gmail.com. And we will send you the link. And we will be happy to answer your questions, send you source material, or you could go to, and I'm typing it in now, go to resecco.org. The link is there. And you can pull down, you can go down to the projects at the last tab, and you will be able to see the Power for All project. And it's got a lot of news articles, a lot of the source material. And this weekend, I will be updating the website. It will have a link to the petition there.
great. Yes. Yeah, we just need to get this petition out and sharing it. It's on change.org, but we need to get above a certain minimum threshold of signatures before it becomes more visible. So definitely, if possible, sign electronically so that we can get that more visible to other people on change.org, so it will start promoting.
Yeah, I think we need 600 signatures to actually see it, have everybody be able to see it and it go
Yeah.
live.
So if possible, please sign electronically.
And also, Matthew and I both have hard copies of the petition that we have also gotten signatures on, and we're starting to capture that online now. And if you like the work I mean, this is going to be the pitch. If you like the work we do, you can go to I'm going to Patreon and look up Resilient Communities and donate to us and help us do the work and get more money, because the other way we can get visible to everybody is pay a significant amount of money to change.org, and they'll be happy to open it up. So we'd actually rather get the signatures, because I think it's
Yes.
a more ethical and better way to go.
Yes, sign electronically.
So yeah. And hold on just a second, I'll put that in the actually I'll just you can find it on our website at resecco.org. Our link to Patreon is there. You can go and see what we have to say about ourselves. And again, that's also going to be updated shortly. We have several events coming up. One of the every Saturday, unless you see it on our page that we're not going to be there, we will be at Cups Cafe in downtown Bremerton on Pacific and 4th between 10:30 and noon every Saturday to answer questions, to have a cup of coffee with, to talk about concerns and hope and the ways we can come together in community. We do workshops every Saturday through July 15th at the downtown Bremerton Library from 12:30 till 2. Reason I say July 15th is they are going to be closing down to put in a new heating and cooling system that they have desperately needed, and they will be down for several months. So stay tuned at the Kids Up Resiliency Project page to see where we move to from there. We will also, the workshop is about perspective and about the ways that we can change the world by bringing people together, starting one neighborhood at a time. We also have Stone Soup coming up in the fall, so stay tuned for that as well. So again, go to the Kids Help Resiliency Project page on Facebook. There's a lot of information there. All of our events are listed there. And if you want to get involved, you can send us a message from there, and we'll invite you to one of the working groups, of which there are 2. So, Matthew, how hopeful are you to have a renewable and reliable, resilient power infrastructure in the next 10 years?
Oh, in the next 10 years, it's going to get a lot more reliable. It has to. It has to. there's too many factors. Um, we've got to talk about the flywheel. We've got to build up the momentum, and once we build up enough, uh, I'm expecting the next 5 years are going to be hard. The following 5 years, we're going to see a lot of progress, and really, um, the amount of progress we see in the second 5 years, it depends on how much energy we get during the first, because that's where we put in that energy, and then the second 5 years will be on top of the momentum of the five. So, yeah,
So sign the
definitely
petition and let's get some energy going.
sign the petition, share it on Facebook.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I love the pun of let's get some energy going.
yeah, yeah. We've got this is you like that pun? How about this? It's power over.
And you completely cut out and you've frozen up. So you'll be back in a second. I did want to, as you were talking about reliable and you're talking about the flywheel, I was working in Silicon Valley when the offsite cloud-based computer movement started with all of the offsite servers and such. And there was one in downtown San Jose
Can hear
in an old mall. Yeah, I can hear you now. You're starting to unfreeze, but you're still kind of semi-frozen. Yeah, you're frozen
okay.
and your words are
Spot.
breaking up. Okay, yeah, you're going through one of those spots where the digital divide happens there. Okay, so I'll go back to telling the story about this facility. It's actually where eBay started out. They have multiple servers there, and it was in an old shopping mall in downtown San Jose, and I mean downtown San Jose in the old town. Um, they had they had these uh, repurposed diesel generators on. Looks like you're starting to come back. You're still
How
frozen, but you're
about
much.
now?
Oh, there you go. Now you're moving. You're there. You're back.
So, um, yeah, I'm just going to speak in the hopes that this is being recorded and that people are being able to see. Yeah, I
Okay,
really
so
believe in
you're
this.
okay.
There's so much that can be done if it doesn't require a lot of effort. You just need to pause, take a moment, and uh, and spread the word about some of these solutions so that we can get that momentum going. Power over your power.
Yep,
That's what this is
power over your
about.
power. Absolutely. So anyway, I was talking about co-location facilities
I'm
of
not just
servers.
talking about the void, although that's possible.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that fascinates me.
Guessing that this is
Um,
Mars. Well, it's it's probably that it is a problem in mind.
okay. Can you hear me, Matthew? Are you hearing me?
This might be the last time I do this on the bus.
Can you hear me, or am I silent? Okay, so he's not hearing me at this point. Um, so I'll go back to what I was saying. There were these World War II, or actually Korean War issue um, diesel generators with these giant flywheels that were in missile silos. And so this is a switch. I can hear him. He can't hear me. Um, and in these silos, or they would put them up on the roof of this building, and the diesel generators, if the power went out, the diesel generators would fire up, and they would take very little energy to start the flywheels turning. And the flywheels would start turning, and they would start generating power. And there were three of them up on the roof of this building, and it was determined that with like 500 gallons of gas up there, huh? Okay, with 500 gallons of diesel up there, they would be able to. Oh, he dropped off and come back. They would be able to run the entire city of San Jose for up to a week. Okay, let me bring him back in. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You wouldn't be able to
Okay.
hear me because I was telling a story about about the flywheels on top of a co-location server facility in downtown San Jose. They came out of they came out of Cold War era missile silos,
Oh
and
my goodness.
they had diesel generators on them. There were three of them up there. They had 500 gallons of diesel on the roof to because this is the co-location facility where eBay got its start.
Oh wow.
So a lot of servers. This place had lots of servers, so power was kind of an issue. They needed to make sure they had power.
Yeah.
So if the power went down because it was PG&E, which was never reliable, they would fire up the diesel
Sure.
generators and they would start turning the flywheel. It took a minuscule amount of diesel fuel to get the flywheel going. Once the flywheel started moving, it would start generating power on its own. So it was actually incredibly efficient
Yeah.
and would generate power. So some of the older technology combined with the newer technology could
Mm-hmm.
actually be incredibly powerful for what we're talking about. If you have a solar generator and it's enough to get the flywheel moving, that flywheel will
Yep.
generate power on its own because of the movement, and it only takes a little
Yep.
bit of a spark now and again, and that's a way to multiply be a multiplier of the power you're generating. So yeah, and so all the critics of busing, this is what you got going on. Um, So yeah, yeah, the digital divide. I will tell you one of my favorite things about Amtrak is they have good signal a lot of the way down if you're going to California on the train, and you can sit up in the club car and work. So anyway, hmm? I'm sorry, Matthew. What? You said something and I lost it. You kind of broke up in the middle there. Okay. So Matthew's breaking up again, and I just wanted to, as we come to the close of the program, I wanted to talk a little bit about Flag Day and the fact that we celebrate the flag. And you see the background behind me is I like to celebrate our flag, but I like to think about the fact that we can lead the world to peace by adopting by learning from them and proving out the human centric way to live and lead the world there. It would be nice to lead not only in our dollars, but be able to lead by our ability to embrace our humanity and to put aside our divisiveness. And one of the things we need to work on diversity is our power. We need to be secure in our power. We need to be secure in our food. We need to be able to work with each other and coordinate with each other and cooperate with each other instead of constantly competing. And we can lead the world in this if we can learn how to do it ourselves. So that is so Matthew, do you have the last word for today?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. The pun I was trying to make before, quick. It's power over your power. This
Power
is
over your
about,
power.
yes, this is what it's all about. That we are able to take power over our power. And that's what we
Exactly.
want.
Yep, which makes absolute sense. So we need to create the energy to obtain power over our power.
Yep.
So, folks, get in touch with us. Come meet us on Saturdays. Talk to Matthew. Talk to me. Talk to Marwan. We have each of us have pieces of this puzzle. We have a new board member named Crystal Connolly, who is going to be taking on the Food for All project, and they're all making forward progress, but none of it goes very far without you. So step up and become part of the discussion. Step up and make this a world, this county a better place, and model that for the world. And so this is Mark Boatwright-Frost from Resilient Ecosystems and Marwan Cameron from Gather Together, Grow Together and The Conduit, and Matthew Barrett from Solar King of Kitsap, Lumio, and on the board of directors for Resilient Ecosystems. Let's do this together. Let's make this happen. Last thing to say, Matthew, it sounds like you're breaking up. So that's it for tipping points and puzzle pieces this week. Come back next week and we'll have another gripping subject to talk about. And hopefully we'll solve out some of the technical problems in the meantime.
Won't that be nice?
Yeah. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you all soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.